Hello everyone. My name's Yatin. I'm a part of the NetFizz lab and I'm supervised by Dr. Javeria Ali Hashmi. So today I'll be talking about trauma and body mass index as predictors of systemic dysregulation and sensory abnormalities in fibromyalgia. I have no relationships to disclose, no financial relationships to disclose. This project was funded through grants from the Canadian Institute of Health Research and Nova Scotia Health. So I'll start with fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is a chronic pain condition which is characterized by widespread musculoskeletal pain. So chronic pain for at least 3 months in at least three sites in the body. This disease is associated with trauma such that childhood trauma is positively associated with fibromyalgia, and exposure to traumatic events is associated with increased chances of developing fibromyalgia. Allostasis is when system-wide processes reestablish homeostasis, and when this is prolonged, it leads to allostatic load, which is associated with systemic dysregulation. And fibromyalgia has been associated with markers of allostatic load, such as high BMI, insulin resistance, inflammation, etc. But these findings are inconsistent. Fibromyalgia patients also process pain abnormally. So my objectives for this project were to investigate system-wide dysregulation, trauma exposure, and lifestyle and sensory cognitive abnormalities in fibromyalgia patients. And my hypothesis was that the severity of fibromyalgia will be associated with trauma exposure and system-wide dysregulation. When we collected data, we started with collecting baseline blood and physiological measures, but only for fibromyalgia patients. And then for fibromyalgia patients and healthy people, we collected questionnaire data by asking them to fill out questionnaires assessing trauma, lifestyle, and pain. And then for both fibromyalgia patients and healthy people, we asked them to participate in a pain schema task. So the pain schema task was we presented participants with a cue, such as you can see over here. We presented participants with a cue, and then we gave them a heat stimulus, and then we asked them to give their pain rating. So there were three conditions. One is the match condition, in which the cue and the stimulus were matched. They were the same intensity, but in the mismatch condition, we purposely gave the wrong cues. To purposefully create wrong expectations in these participants. We had 42 fibromyalgia patients and 25 healthy people, or healthy controls, as we know them, and they were age and sex matched. So our results showed that more than half of our fibromyalgia sample had insulin resistance, had chronic inflammation measured by HSCRP, had high BMI, had also had trauma exposure, 85% of the sample. Well, when we looked at correlations between brief trauma, which is a measure of traumatic events throughout the lifespan, and these could be both mentally or physically traumatic events, and childhood trauma and body mass index. So we found that childhood trauma and body mass index had significant correlations with insulin, HOMIR, which is insulin resistance, WBC, which is white blood cells, and these were all positive correlations. Uh, and hsCRP, which indicates inflammation, and so childhood trauma and BMI themselves were also very highly correlated. And brief trauma was positively correlated with the thyroid stimulating hormone and red blood cells. When we looked at the lifestyle of fibromyalgia patients and healthy people, we saw that fibromyalgia patients have a poorer lifestyle than healthy controls. And we did this by using a lifestyle questionnaire. And when we looked at correlations between childhood trauma, we looked at correlations that childhood trauma and BMI have with lifestyle total. We saw that there was a negative correlation that childhood trauma and BMI had with lifestyle total, such that greater childhood trauma and greater BMI are associated with a poorer lifestyle. And childhood trauma is also positively correlated with fibromyalgia severity, meaning that the higher the childhood trauma a person experienced, the more likely they were to have more severe fibromyalgia. And then here, these are results from the schema task. So we found that, well, in the schema task, when the cues are of low intensity, in the mismatch conditions, the prediction error is the highest. By prediction error, I mean the cue that we gave the participants and the heat stimulus, the difference between them was at its largest. So when we found that when we average the pain ratings for these high prediction error cue intensities, we see a negative correlation that BMI has with pain ratings, indicating that in fibromyalgia patients, the higher their BMI, the more likely they are to conform to these cues that were given, even when they're wrong. And in conclusion, I'd like to say that trauma and BMI predict systemic dysregulation in fibromyalgia patients as measured through insulin resistance, immune system activity, and inflammation. These results suggest that BMI and trauma are related to allostatic load as well. The lifestyle of fibromyalgia patients is significantly poorer than healthy people, and such a poor lifestyle is worsened by increased childhood trauma or high BMI. And childhood trauma is also associated with more severe fibromyalgia. And BMI in fibromyalgia patients is associated with sensory cognitive abnormalities. I'd like to thank the members of my lab for supporting me in this project, and thank you.